Hello there, Adrian Whichcourt, solicitor at Thackeray Williams Solicitors. Deal with residential property transactions in the main, but all things property really. Today just wanted to do a quick video just regarding theft, and in particular property theft. And when I talk about that, I'm not talking about things like shoplifting or anything like that. I'm talking about the theft of actual property. Now, I can hear you all screaming, how does someone steal bricks and mortar? To answer that question, you have to go have a little bit of a history lesson first. Pre-1925, everyone had deeds to their property, so to prove that you owned a property, you had a series of documents, your deeds, which showed your ownership of certain parcels of land. Then, in 1925, we had the first Land Registration Act, the idea of having a central registry of all land in England and Wales. So whenever you then bought and sold a property, you'd apply to register your new property to the land registry, and the land registry would send you a certificate to prove that was then used as proof of your ownership. And whenever you wanted then to make an application to change that register, so if you sold the property, the land registry had to be provided with that certificate. Then, the most recent bit of major legislation on land registration was in 2002, the Land Registration Act 2002. Did many things, but one of those was that it did away with land certificates, and it's a process called dematerialisation. All of that was a precursor to the idea that at some stage the conveyancing world would go online, so we'll have online conveyancing, and having to submit paper deeds wouldn't go along with that. Now, online conveyancing hasn't yet come in. You see, 2002 was the Act, and after quite a few millions were spent on trying to work out a process for it, that still hasn't come to fruition. But the important thing was that for applications then to be made to the land registry, you didn't have to send in that land certificate. Now, straight away, fraudsters realised that was something that was of quite a good idea for them, in particular because of a fraud. So it's called a property takeover fraud, where people pretend to be the owner of a property and deal with it, when in fact the actual real owners of the property know nothing about what dealings are going on. And doing away with land certificates made that possible. Once that Land Registration Act came in and deeds were, or the land certificates were done away with, there was a real problem with frauds on the register, and that gave rise to new requirements at the land registry, where we as solicitors, when we're making applications to the land registry, we have to say who has acted for who, make sure that everyone's identification has been checked as part of our process. And if someone is not hasn't had solicitors act for them as part of a transaction, their ID still has to be checked by someone. So that's been good in a way, in that it has meant that a lot of the fraud has been done away with, because there is at least some sort of checking procedure in there. But unfortunately, it's by no means foolproof. I mean, you can have you can ask for restrictions to be put on your register that says that anyone making an application, there has to be a certificate by a conveyancer that says the person who they're dealing with is the registered proprietor. We certify that they're the registered proprietor. Some people have that on their register, have wanted that on their registers. Many have not, and unfortunately, of course, it's in itself not foolproof. In a recent case, actually shows why it's not foolproof, and that's where a solicitor and his practice manager have been jailed for fraud, because they were the ones doing it, and they were the ones that took over a property by essentially identifying an empty property and selling it without the actual owner's knowledge to someone else, took the money for it, spent the money, and the real owners of that property had no idea anything was going on. Now, the land registry then will have to compensate probably the buyer in that case. The transaction will be undone, and the buyer will be have his money given back to them. But obviously, this causes an awful lot of problems. There's people going out there and dealing with properties that aren't theirs, and you as the actual owner of the property will have no idea any of this is going on. So the one thing I wanted to say is that there is a service at the Land Registry. It's called the Property Alert Service, and it's a free service. You can register with it and tell the Land Registry what property you want to be alerted to about, and if any transactions are made in respect of that property, or any applications are made to the Land Registry in respect of that property, you will get told about it. The Land Registry will let you know what has happened, or what's come in, and you then have an opportunity to get in touch with the Land Registry. The alerts tell you where to get in touch if there is something there you're not expecting. So if there is some sort of suspicious transaction, like you're not expecting anything to be happening in this house, and all of a sudden the Land Registry tell you that someone's made an application in respect of the sale of this property, you can get straight back in touch with the Land Registry and say, there's a problem here, and that can then nip it in the bud. I'm going to have, hopefully, in the video description a link to the Land Registry's Property Alert Service. So please do go in there and have a look. As I say, it's a free service. In fact, you don't even have to. It's on. For doing it, you can go online, but you can phone up the Land Registry as well, and you don't need to register for it online. You can do it over the phone. So it's a free service. It's well worth looking at, because at least then you know that if anyone does try and do anything to make any applications in respect of your property, you will get told about it. If you're expecting that transaction, you're in the process of selling your house and you get alerted to it, that's fine, that's not a problem. But at least if you're not expecting these things and someone's making an application in respect to your property, you've got a chance to nip anything suspicious in the bud. So just thought I'd say that. If you've got any questions and want to discuss anything regarding how to protect yourself from property fraud, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Many thanks.